how to increase your income and get more freedom from your business. Derek and I have known each other for many years now, and Derek owns a real estate company as well as a fix and flip company, and then also helps other people in regards to their education for fix and flip. Derek, I appreciate you coming on. And if you want to just give us a quick introduction on yourself, that might be a little bit more in depth than I was able to do.
Yeah, no, thanks, Matt. I really appreciate you having me. Yeah, so I have a very different and diverse background. I've got 2 different stints in the corporate world. So I worked for the Denver Broncos and NFL for 7 years. I then moved into media, working for CBS television for 7 years. And then I did 3 years of corporate finance. So all that was before real estate investing. But what got me into investing was in 2009. I was working with CBS television and met somebody there, and they sucked me into real estate. So started doing real estate in 2009, doing more rentals. And then fast forward to 2015 is when I started Elevation as its own independent investment company and really added that aspect of day-to-day fix and flips, wholesaling. From there, started and added a brokerage division, which my wife, Ann, runs. So we've got 10 agents that now work for Elevation and hang their license with Elevation. And hyper-focused on flips, wholesaling. You mentioned it, we've got the Elevation Academy, so we teach people how to flip as well. And then the fun thing is we're both recording out of our co-work space that we own called the Broadway Collective, and it's a real-centric co-work space in Inglewood, Colorado. So trying to hit as many real estate buckets as possible en route to building value for everybody that we interact with.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what was the turning point after having those different careers that you decided that you were going to become, because I think you started in fix and flip full time. Was that in 2009? What was the turning point there that actually made you make that decision? Why'd you end up doing that?
Yeah, so it was twofold. So in 2009, we started doing the rentals, and I was still working for CBS television, doing the corporate thing. It was obviously the housing crash. And so when something cash flows right out of the gate, I know we all say we wish we could have bought double or triple or whatever, but nobody was that smart or had maybe that much guts to really go all in. But I really loved that and enjoyed that. But it didn't replace my income yet. I still did enjoy media. So I was selling television advertising time during Broncos games and Final Four and the Masters and stuff. But then I got the itch to start my own company. And so I did that with my dad, and we started a finance company. So I come from a long line of Wall Street traders. Everybody in my family, except my father, everybody still lives back east in New York and New Jersey. And so I got the itch to start my own company. But then in 2015, it was great. We worked during normal trading hours, and I was in the municipal bond sales sector of the market. So doing bonds for E470 or doing bonds for school districts, things of that nature, not the equity side. You get done at 2 or 3 o'clock Denver time and you have some time on your hands. And so I started getting into flipping more as just a supplement to the income. But then the perfect storm happened where the bond market just got destroyed in 2015. And then the real estate market really started to take off. And I could feel like I could control my own destiny a lot more. And so I went to my dad, who we were business partners, to start things off. And I said, the bond market is changing. Independent brokerages like we owned, a small little boutique broker dealer, just weren't in a position to be successful. And as we know, Denver real estate was just going straight up. So I was like, screw it, let's go all in, and fell in love with the business model, but then also the ability to run our own business. And in 2015 is when it really started to take off.
Got it. And how many successful investment properties and successful flips have you done since your career?
Yeah, so since 2015, focusing primarily on flips and wholesales for ourselves and our clients, we've done 88 to date, and we've been profitable on 85 out of 88. I think that math is now like 96.5, 97% success rate. So we're doing well, but I am always a big proponent of sharing the wins and the losses. So we've got some phenomenal wins, but our worst loss ever is $44,000 on one 2-bed, 1-bathroom, regular house that we sold for $441,000, and I lost $44,000 on it. But we got a pretty good record of 85 or 84 out of 87 are profitable.
Yeah. What would you say would be like one of the most challenging things that you've ever faced in your career, and how you overcame that?
Yeah, man, there's definitely been a couple of them. And I go back to, I think it's somebody that you and I both follow from a content perspective, but Cody Sanchez had a great quote, very smart businesswoman that buys and essentially builds and flips businesses. And I saw something where she said, my dad told me that if you haven't been up in the middle of the night in your living room with your head in your hands in the pitch black going, how in the hell am I going to make this work? Like you haven't been an entrepreneur and been through that brick wall. So we've had a couple of them, but I would say most recently was that crazy interest rate jump in the middle of 2022, where we went out of the COVID insane boom market of halfway through 2020 through halfway through 2022, where every investor looked like the smartest person on the planet. We really were focused on saying, hey, we underwrite deals as, I'm a sports guy, so that double, that for us, that's like a $50,000 to a $75,000 net profit, but every deal became a six-figure profit. And we bought into, not to say we bought into our own Kool-Aid, but I just didn't think the market would fall off that fast. But in Denver, I mean, in a 6-week time period, I saw a 10% correction. So on that flip that I mentioned that we lost a crap load of money, that was probably one of our most challenging ones because we sold a way less than median home price home in Denver and got our asses kicked on that one. But I did really well on more expensive ones. So that was a tough one that I'm like, man, I'm selling this beautiful house for under 450 grand. And I just got my butt kicked on it. That was a tough day in the middle of 2022 when things just really took a pretty big nosedive in a super short period of time.
Okay. And what would you say, how'd you get through that?
I think it was twofold. I think one is old school mindset. You have two choices. You can either roll over and die in that industry and go back to work in the corporate world, I guess, or you can say, I got to find a way to recover. But more from a business fundamental standpoint, it's having a lot of reserves. We were very fortunate to have good reserves. One of the things I actually didn't mention, I probably should have, is a big division of our company is we service hedge funds. And so we both source and find rental properties for hedge funds to acquire. And now we're actually selling off part of hedge funds portfolios. So we just socked away tons of money. Believe me, I would have loved to have bought a bigger house, driven a nicer car, but that rainy day fund and that exit business capital gives you the flexibility to stand back and go, okay, I can dust myself off and keep going. So I think it's mindset coupled with reserves. We're really figuring it out.
Yeah, having that safety net is huge and not getting too thin. And like you said, it's increasing that lifestyle. So I consult with business owners in 4 quadrants of sales, marketing, operations, mindset. And I think if you were to look at like your business and the keys to your success, if you had to rank those, if we were to go through those quick, like what's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 in your own priority in regards to your success?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm going to answer that question from the role that I currently sit in. We run our business through the Traction, the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So I feel like I'm classically trained as the visionary or the CEO, but I really try to wear a very COO and operations hat. So to me, I think one is actually mindset. I think being an entrepreneur, there are so many hard times and hard days that you could just hang it up. Even when things are going good financially, sometimes it can just be maybe so stressful or so time consuming or other aspects of your life fall off. I think the whole work-life balance is a bit of a farce. I try to call it work-life harmony. It's never perfect. It's never like a seesaw that goes one way or the other. But if you have that growth mindset, I think that's key. And then, man, I hate to be a cop-out, but I'm really back and forth between marketing and sales. I think at the end of the day, sales, and I know you and I have talked about this, is the lifeblood of any organization. So I think I'd have to rank sales as A, but marketing is 2B. And what we're learning about marketing is exactly what we're doing right now. We're recording podcasts. We're really big proponents of creating content and creating value for people. And then they'll come into your business ecosystem and they might enter at a $7 ebook level, or they might enter at a partnership flip for us, which means we're splitting the profits on us doing a flip for somebody and we each make $50,000. So I think probably marketing, and I hate to put operations fourth, but I've actually just went through something with another strategist. You can be as operationally sound as you want, but if you don't have business to categorize into all your checklists and your organization parts, it doesn't matter. So I think I'd rank it that way. It can change daily.
Yeah, for sure. It's a tough question when people say rank the 5 love languages. It's like the same type of thing. You really do need all 4: marketing, sales, operations, and mindset. And you really can't get around, I think, any one of those when you're going to be successful. But I was just curious if you were to rank it. And then as you've done the Flip Academy, what do you feel like is the main thing that holds people back when it comes to mindset? What are you seeing that's holding people back as you're doing the education?
Yeah, I'll answer that in two different compartments. I think there's actually a ton of people that are held back from even just starting and doing our Elevation Academy. And so for us, just to give a quick overview, it's a very intensive 1-day training, and we teach people literally every step of our system. There's actually 107 steps right now. So again, we really dial into the operational side. But the price point is not cheap, and we did that on purpose, but it's not astronomical. So right now it's $997 for that. But the way that we say is if you can't gain access to our contractors and save that amount of money, access to our deals and get a better deal, and then the system itself to hopefully run faster and save yourself interest, it should be a no-brainer. But I actually just talked to a guy yesterday, and he supposedly is a 20-year fix and flip veteran, and he was saying, well, man, the market's really hard and it's hard for us to find good deals, and $997 is a lot of money. Why should I do this? I'm from New Jersey. So like my inner Jersey almost want to be like, dude, you can't afford not to do this. And so it's mindset just getting into the academy. So once you get in, I think then the next mindset kind of hurdle, if you will, is if you're a beginner or if you're experienced. And I would say our audience is probably half beginners, people that have done less than 3 flips, and the other half are people that have done probably like 10 or more. And so I think it's really having them have the confidence that they can absolutely do this. They can essentially do it to quit their job. We're pretty proud. We've helped 7 people quit their corporate jobs by teaching them how to flip, and then they run with it and doing great things. So I think it's the person who's got a great 6-figure job. They've got a family. I think that's the big jump. It's a hard jump to make, but you can do it. You just have to have those reserves, follow the system, and then those people are doing really, really well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think mindset just is so huge. Did a lot of real estate coaching back in my day, and it just seemed like I could tell if they were going to move forward based on what they focused on. So if they were focusing on all the negative things that could happen, or were they focusing on the cash flow, the appreciation, the principal reduction, if they were holding like a rental. There's so many things on the positive, but I could usually tell if they were going to move forward just based off the question that they asked, if they were more fear-based questions or if they were more like faith-based questions. So you mentioned sales being number 2. I don't want to have you give away all your secret sauce, but can you tell us, when I think of sales system, what are the things that you guys are doing proactively to try to reach sellers and those good deals? Because I think that's probably one of the most important things in real estate investing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate asking that question. And I think the funny thing about that is we literally just redesigned our website, and I was working with our website designer, and he was just trying to get some content out of me and add things to the website. I didn't even realize I said this, but I said, our secret sauce is that it's actually not secret. And it sounds cheesy, but what I mean by that is it is an abundance mindset. And most people are like, why the hell are you training your competition? And what we found by doing the academy or just working with other people is by teaching people, 1, you're going to help them get a better system. And 2, we're all going to do more business together. And I've been doing this for a while, since 2015. I've only run into a person that I've known at the same property twice. And that's out of, we've done 87 deals, and we've probably written on thousands of properties. So there's enough to go around. But then we actually just focus on the basic blocking and tackling. And for us, I think investors get tripped up because they don't utilize real estate agents. Those are folks that if you can work with an agent and help tell that agent, look, we're not your competition. We're not going to steal your listing, or we're not going to back you out of a commission. I'm going to give you a solution. And this is what we do with a lot of real estate agents. Our number 1 lead gen source are other real estate agents. And it's us coming in and saying, hey, we will give your client a cash offer. You do not have to pay us any commissions. So save your people half commission, which is ironic because of the NAR lawsuit settlement. That's where things are going to somewhat go. We're already doing that anyways. And then you can earn your full commission. You can make whatever you want to provide your client value. We'll buy your house, or your client's house, I should say. So really that's been the number 1 focus, is meeting as many agents as possible, telling them about our value proposition and being inclusive with them. That's been huge. We still do some direct to seller marketing and sales. So we have a cold calling company that we've ebbed and flowed between 1 full-time caller and 2 full-time callers calling 40 hours a week to develop warm leads that are sent into our team, and then they'll take it from there. So that's probably been number 2. And then number 3 is creating content. It's doing our podcasts, being on podcasts like yourself, just putting out as much content, teaching free classes, having meetups, at our co-work space. So just putting out a lot of content and then deals bubble up from that. So those are really our 4 things. So the fun thing is it's not like, oh, we just do this secret thing and I can't tell anybody about it. Everybody can do exactly what we do. And there's people that are doing it way better than us. And we're just probably in the middle.
Yeah. I got an email from one of my marketing mentors. He's very well known, and he's like, there is no silver bullet. Yeah. So it's basically a combination of the things, or I like to call it the omnipresent marketing strategy, where it's like, hey, I'm going to be doing calls, emails, voicemail drops, direct mail, and really doing a lot of different touches to really make that work. With how important do you think, when you're coaching other investors on like the marketing side of things, how important is that marketing side, or is it mainly going to be like more so outbound sales? I think of like, hey, we're going to drum up this seller from our sales activity, that the caller and direct mail and those type of things, versus like marketing. It still actually would call like direct mail more like marketing and such. But how important is the marketing side for the investors, or is it more like sales and outbound based?
Yes, that's another good question. I like to think of them in the short term and the long term. So for me, short term is much more sales focused. And the way that I like to think of it is, what dial can I turn to hopefully juice up a result? So to my point earlier of, hey, if I want to have cold callers, can I hire 3 cold callers and generate 75 leads a month instead of 2 cold callers at 50 leads a month? So to me, the short-term answer is sales related and sales focused. And it's having those KPIs or those key performance indicators of like, you have to hit this every day or every week or every month to get where you want to go. But if you don't have a marketing pipeline, and I know you and I have talked about this offline for a long time, that longer term sales cycle of putting out content, of building relationships, of providing long-term value, it's like planting those seeds. And at some point that crop will, I think that's where my mind goes from like the marketing side of things. And okay, that's where you get exponential growth, is then you have the sales, you've got the revenue, you turn up the dials on more of the short-term stuff, and then your long-term stuff starts to pay off. And that's when people go, wow, we've built a significant 7, 8, 9-figure business. If I had to start first, I'd lean to sales, but you can't bail on the long-term marketing play.
Yeah, I 100% agree. When I'm consulting a business owner, I'm like, let's start in sales if you need to drum things up, especially if you don't have any money too, right? If you don't have a budget to start doing some of the marketing stuff, that it's not that easy to just flip the switch on marketing compared to sales. You can start picking up the phone and you can start door knocking and those type of things if you need to. So I guess a fourth is operations. When I think of operations, I think of fulfillment. And obviously with contractors, I've seen most fix and flip people is when they lose their money, they usually lose their money because they messed the budget up, or the budget basically, or the time frame took too long, or they just got in bed with the wrong contractor, or the wrong subcontractor. So I know, like you said, COO type of guy, very systems oriented. How have you been successful in the fulfillment side, and what advice would you give? The good thing about these 4 quadrants is that they're applicable to any business and any entrepreneur. It doesn't have to be, whether it be fix and flip or entrepreneur, like real estate or real estate agent. But what would you say would be the key to your success in that operations and fulfillment area?
Yeah, I think the way that where my mind goes is if I obviously lean into my day-to-day business of doing fix and flips, is having an organized system, and then just tweaking that system every so often. So what we do when we flip properties is we have that 105-step system. We actually use software called Monday.com. And what we've done is we've really customized that to every single piece of the puzzle to do a fix and flip. And then when a new project comes up, we just, copy and paste, rinse and repeat. As much as I love HGTV and everybody thinks, oh, flips equal HGTV, there's nothing that pisses me off more than a couple wandering around Floor & Decor and saying like, well, what about this tile, or what about that? That to me is the bane of my existence. And not to say that you shouldn't have customization to your product or it should look the same. Mm-hmm. But what we do is actually we pick 6 different what we call fixture and finish packages. So what do you put in your fix and flip to make it look the best you can for that specific price point? But we have everything dialed and we have our spreadsheet down so that every single thing that we put in our house is ready to rock and roll. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We're really applying to the widest buying audience. It's not what I like. It's not what my wife happens to like. So point being, whether it's flips or whether it's just general business owners, have a system. And then we probably update that between 1 and 2 times a year. We want current tastes. We bring in an interior designer to help freshen it up, but we probably only change 20% of the fixtures and finishes of what we do. So it's having that system, it's rinsing, repeating. And then it's really just taking notes. In our world, again, if you do a flip, whether there's good things or bad things. And we've got actually one of our last little checklists is, what did we learn? So if it's, hey, we were in a neighborhood, but we were on this side of the busy street versus that side of the busy street, we realized there's an even a more finite amount of dollars we can sell that property for. So we need to be more conservative. Or, hey, we thought that this neighborhood was a demographic of young professionals, but it was actually folks that were retiring and downsizing. And so maybe we missed the boat a little on that. So it's also just documenting everything so that you've got your system, you've got your things that might be a one-off outlier, or it's like, hey, this came up 5 times. We need to be super sensitive to that. So I think those things hopefully coupled together give that person operational acumen to really refine their business, make it profitable and successful.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely think that's really huge of just having those checklists. Like you mentioned, one of my business coaches used to give this example in the hospital they were doing amputations and they were actually ending up cutting off the wrong. So they might be cutting off the left versus they were supposed to cut off the right.
Yeah.
And it's like comical because it's such a big mistake, right? And they basically finally implemented these checklists. And once they implemented that checklist, the results went through the roof just by having these checklists. So after I heard that, in my business definitely had gotten those checklists and then a customer experience map to make sure that the flow is going to be the same throughout. As my old business coach used to say, people don't love McDonald's for the hamburgers. They love it for their consistency and that they know what they're going to get. Yeah, I think those pieces and those systems and those processes are really important. But what about people? Obviously, you're not typically bringing these contractors on staff, but how important are the people that you work with? And then how do you make sure that you have good people and keep them on your team and retain? Tell us about your success with people and putting people on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say we're probably still more of a small company in that full time we have myself, we have my wife, Ann, who runs the brokerage division and our co-work space. And then we have a full-time project manager. He's now been promoted. He's our senior project manager. He helps run all the flips. And so he's the main liaison for us between either a general contractor or if it's something really cosmetic, he'll coordinate with subcontractors. And then we have a sales manager, and that person oversees our brokers. And so we're in an interesting evolutionary position with our business where we have truly in-house employees and team members that we need to really provide value to. We need to interview well, and we need to build hopefully a winning culture. But then we have agents that are 1099 or independent contractors, or to your point earlier, my project manager has to work with independent general contractors that drastically affect how our product comes out and potentially our profitability. So I think it's having an honest dialogue. It's taking care of people. I think it seems very, very basic, but in our world, I feel like the trades and the contractors aren't treated well. And back in the day, you'd again see on HGTV where an investor would come in and start screaming at a contractor or whatever. In Metro Denver, that person has 10 other jobs lined up. They will straight up no-show the next day if you treat somebody like crap. And so for us, you want to show that you know what you're doing and you mean business, but we try to make it a habit that every couple of weeks we'll buy lunch for the crew on Friday. We want to show our appreciation. We will try to work through things. So let's say it's a mistake and we try to have a system so there shouldn't be as many mistakes, but just stuff comes up. And so you can have a conversation with the contractor and say, dude, we've used the same carpet in every single house over the last 6 houses. Maybe the skew is off when you picked up the carpet, but this isn't the right carpet. If you've got a good relationship, that contractor will eat that cost and put the right carpet in, and then maybe you try to work it out so that you use the other one on a new project. But if you're churning through new people or new contractors every time, they're going to tell you to pound sand. You lose time, which in our world is money. So it's also making good business decisions too. So I think it's trying to cultivate internal teams, those external or 1099 teams, and then weigh it with what's the brain damage of having to find another new contractor or having somebody walk off a job, and just make a good business decision to best suit your operation.
Yeah, 100%. It's just so crazy to think like some of the solopreneurs that just don't ever end up putting anybody on their team, and they're just such a miserable existence. Unfortunately, I think Robert Kiyosaki talks about solopreneurs in the quadrant, and that being the worst quadrant versus getting the right team is just so huge. And I know that you and I have been on the same page on this, but I'm curious what role mentorships and hiring coaches actually kind of played into your success.
Yeah, absolutely. I think mentors are extremely important. And it's funny you say this because we just recorded an episode on my podcast with another high level investor. And we both agreed that if you're asking somebody for their time, it's really about trying to figure out how can you add value to them, even if you're a little lower down the food chain than a mentor. Typically, obviously, that person's further ahead, but it's like, how can you find their pain point and help provide value for their pain point? Or something that we've really leaned into is no matter how successful somebody is, normally they've got a charity or a philanthropic kind of arm of what they're doing. Can I support that? And that's valuable versus I might not be able to refer them business. Trying to find the right mentors and trying to add value to those mentors so that they do pick up your phone or they actually don't mind going to lunch. Because when everybody says, oh, can I buy you a cup of coffee or can I buy you lunch or can I pick your brain? I'm brutally honest, in my opinion, where people are like, if that person's successful, they can afford any coffee, any lunch, any dinner. But if you're providing value and then you're eager to learn, I think to me, that's huge from a mentor standpoint. Mm-hmm. From a coaching standpoint, I think that's a huge way to help level up your business because you can only get so far. And when somebody helps you think from a different perspective, sometimes I think as business owners, we're just so close to what we're doing. And then things change in business too. So I've got a business strategist and a business coach that I've worked with now for 4 years. And there's just been different evolutions of the business. And this person's helped me tremendously. But at some point, I'll probably outgrow this person and they'll fill a different role. And I'll probably need to find a different coach. So I know you and I both have an athletic background. It's like trying to become a phenomenal athlete without a coach. It doesn't happen, in my opinion. And you can do it, but you have to be the needle in the haystack. But to me, if Michael Jordan had a coach, if John Elway had a coach, if Kobe Bryant had a coach, I think we can all have coaches in the business realm too.
Yeah, 100%. I was listening to a training this morning that he was just talking about Olympic athletes, professional athletes, all the best quarterbacks in the world all have a coach as well as a team, right? They started talking about a professional athlete literally has a whole team behind them in regards to whether that be like on the nutrition side, on the physical side, on the sports side. They really have a whole team that's helping them be successful. It's not them just being the solo person doing it all on their own. So yeah, it's huge. And I was curious at the point that you probably don't need to be doing the academy. You've got a good business, you got a good model. You can keep just basically doing more fix and flip and not needing to do the academy. I was just curious, what made you want to do the academy?
Yeah, I think it really stemmed from my love of teaching and my love of education. And I look back, somebody actually asked me this question and I had to do some research. But when I was coming up in college, I ended up being a orientation leader. And so when freshmen would come in, I was entering my senior year. And so I was teaching them. And then when in undergrad and in graduate school, I was a TA. And so I was a teaching assistant and taught those folks. And then love youth sports. I've got 3 teenagers and they've all played different sports and I've tried to coach wherever I can. So I actually just love coaching and training and education. And I think it also really stemmed from, we use the business, we call it our lab, meaning we're doing this business all day, every day. And so what I really pride ourselves in is there's some really big educators out there in the real estate investment space, but they're teaching stuff that's 5 years old. And it's in a completely different market. And they're getting big dollars. And I just feel like that's highway robbery. You can charge a ton of money if you deliver a ton of value. So what ourselves in doing is doing what we're doing in our day-to-day business. And then the next quarter, because we do our academy on a quarterly basis, it's like, hey, we just did 6 projects and here's exactly what happened, good or bad. And so, yeah, I still just love teaching. I love training. I love educating. I'll probably never stop doing that because I've seen a bunch of really successful business owners. And when you just hang it up and retire and think you're going to play golf the rest of your life, it's not morbid, but those people like kick the bucket really quickly. I just want to be able to give back and teach and train in different aspects and have people do the work. Like I'd always love to do a little less work, go on a little more vacation, but it's just been a passion of mine. So I'd probably say that's 75% of the model. And the other 25% is it is a great kind of feeder to our business and feeder for talent. So whether it's good agents that we're like, ooh, man, we need to get her on our team, or somebody that we want to open up a new division, it's a great feeder for talent and it's a great feeder for deals. But to me, it's okay. I like to teach, I like to educate, and I like to train.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. The big thing for me has just been fulfillment. It's so fun to see other people successful. I had some certain clients, especially in the mortgage business, when I did some of that coaching, And there were people that are like just super grateful because they're really set up well financially now because of that mentorship. So that's awesome that you're helping people out and not just operating a business, not doing the educational piece. So that's super cool. And then you have another product called Partnership Flip. Can you tell us just exactly what that is and why you ended up doing that product?
Yeah, so that kind of stemmed from, we do a lot in, it's now more called the older adult space, but it used to be called the senior citizen space. So we would go on appointments and we would go and see a mom and dad's home. They were in the point of moving to an assisted living or maybe moving back in with family members. They had this beautifully taken care of and cared for home. I mean, the running joke I always say is you go down and look at their furnace and it's the same furnace company serviced on the same date every year for 18 years, but it was super dated. And so we would tell people, hey, we can give you a cash offer if you want to just sell your house and not do commissions or closing costs or not fix anything. You can list it, but those homes that were really dated, I think today's buyer really does want a fairly fixed up home because they don't have the skill set to fix it up themselves. It's hard to get contractors and there's a lot of generational wealth transfer. So they just want like done, nice properties. And so it really evolved from, hey, we'll flip your house for you. You still own it, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner, or let's say you've got a rental and you're tired of being a landlord or you want to sell one of your rentals. You keep the asset. I don't have to buy the property. We spend our money, we run it with our crews, and we run all of our systems to fix it up. And I think the thing that most of our clients like about us truly partnering together is, one, there's no markup. So there's not like a GC fee. There's not a markup on materials. It's every invoice is shown. So if I'm saying I'm spending 100 grand, here's all the receipts for the 100 grand. We also are very unemotional. It's all about appealing to the widest buying audience, and it's about generating the most profit. So a lot of times friends and family get involved. They're like, oh, my cousin's an interior designer. That's code for that person just liquidated 50% of your profits because they put a personal touch on it. They put these beautiful things. It's like, no, we want to make it the nicest for whatever that price point is. And we do all the work, we fund it, and then we split the extra profit that we generate 50-50. And so whether it's a seller that wants to work with us directly, my team of agents will sell it. Or to go back to your early question of like, where do you source deals? We work with other agents. We'll run that whole model for them. And then as long as they're an experienced real estate agent, they can sell the house for us. We don't have to have every piece of the pie. So it gives somebody the ability to really sell the house for normally $200,000 to $300,000 more because we're finishing a basement or we're, again, taking all the dated aspects out of the house and splitting the extra profit. And then at closing, let's say the house value today was 500 grand. We put in $100,000 of our money and it's now worth $800,000 at the closing table. Whether they've got it paid off or not, they get that $500,000 in equity. We get paid back our $100,000 and then we split the actual extra true profit that we make. And that's where Partnership Flip really evolved from. And it's been a really cool evolution. We probably only do it 15 to 18% of the time because either somebody needs money faster and they just want to not mess with it, or their house is still in pretty decent shape and we might list it. But it's a great option. It's one that we love, and we make sure that we're super aligned. We can see it coming every once in a while, a mile away, where there's too many cooks in the kitchen. We have very detailed contracts that say, hey, we're the ones kind of making the decisions because we've done all these flips. And when they can't give that control away, we just say, hey, you know what? I just don't think this is going to be a good ending for both of us. So you're down to 2 options instead of 3, and that's where Partnership Flip evolved from.
Okay. Yeah, it's a super cool model. I really like that. With your real estate company, you guys only work with real estate investors. Why did you guys end up making that decision? Because most real estate companies, they're going to work with every Tom, Dick, and Harry and anybody that could fog a mirror. And why'd you end up making that decision? And how important do you think it is for a business to have a niche like that?
Yeah, I think to me it is twofold. One, it was just what we had our passion in. And it's something that I just know that I would not have been good, especially because I'm actually the only guy that's also not licensed at the company. So literally I can't manage those people anyways, but I would have a really hard time, let's say, working with traditional buyers and having to show, 20 or 30 houses in our current market environment, get beat out a lot of the times and do all of that work for that return on investment. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. But if we get really good at investing, we can do a lot more volume and actually make more money in a vertical that we're really good at. Because I think the people that try to be everything to everybody, you just get spread too thin and it's a race to the bottom for price points. And so for us, it was really a no-brainer. Not to say we might not have a division in the future, but yeah, we've backed into it. And then I also looked at it as everybody knows a real estate agent. So unless you're really good, it is hard, I think, to break through when somebody's cousin is an agent or their mom's an agent or whatever. I think that's a hard thing to break through. So for us, it just became simple and it took the emotion out of it. For us, it's primarily about numbers. We love to put out a beautiful product, but really, if I miss out on a deal, it doesn't matter. We'll just write more offers. We'll meet with more sellers. We'll put out more content. But if you miss out on your dream home and you're taking to that person, they're getting beat out every time, or a seller has a house with structural problems and the deal falls apart 5 times, it's emotionally exhausting to me. And so we just evolved that way. And that's what really helped us honestly grow and land our hedge fund division, is working with Wall Street. For us, it's all numbers. We can negotiate on their behalf and do a great job, versus most agents get sucked down into kind of the mire, if you will. For us, we just love the top. It's all about the numbers, and it's just really checked all the boxes for us.
Yeah. With my mortgage career, I had a lot of real estate investors, and that was like one of my huge pieces of advice was don't work with a real estate agent that doesn't have a real estate portfolio. It's just the same thing with working with a coach. Don't hire a coach that hasn't made the money that you want to make. So if you want to learn how to be successful, make sure that they've gotten those results, and then you can follow them. But if you're, again, working with a real estate agent that's renting a house, doesn't even own a house, and they're supposed to help you build a real estate portfolio, it's not going to happen. Versus if you're working with a real estate agent that's built a real estate portfolio, they're going to be able to walk you through that, or working with a coach that's built a business that has produced $1 million in revenue, and they've made that net income. So it's just such a huge principle. And I guess, in the final thoughts, this show is dedicated for people that want to increase their income. They want more freedom. They're probably earlier on in their career, whether they're young or old. I don't really matter about that, but like they're earlier in their entrepreneurial journey. Any final departing words of wisdom that you would give a young entrepreneur, not young, but early entrepreneur that's looking to increase their income and get more freedom?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a boring answer, and then I'm going to wrap it up with hopefully a little bit more of a sexier answer. But the boring answer is live below your means. There's been so many times where we bought our house that we currently live in 2009. I knew it was going to be a great time to buy. I didn't know that it was literally the bottom. Our home has tripled in value, and now we see properties all the time. And I joke that our litmus test for great flips is when my kids walk in and they're like, sell our house. We want to move into this house. And I joke with them, I'm like, we can't afford this house. And it's because this house is going to make us money, not cost us money. So for us, we're almost down with paying off our house in 12 years. And then we have so much more flexibility to either go after our dreams or to build our business or retire if we want to. Again, not sexy, but I don't buy new cars. So like you can buy a super nice car that's 1 year old and you're saving 40 cents on the dollar. So if you start to like compound things like that and you live below your means, and then you use compound interest, whether it's in your business, stock market investing, real estate investing, crypto, whatever, if you can just sock away more money, you're going to be super successful and super financially wealthy. I think that's key. And then I'm going to speak out of the other side of my mouth. I think the sexier part is when you see a good opportunity and there's leverage that's involved, I would take that leap. So when we very first got started in the rental game, I was making great money in the corporate world and I was saving as much as humanly possible. And I was able to slowly buy a rental here and there. I decided to go to my father-in-law, who was luckily a great real estate investor and had a line of credit on one of his self-storage facilities. And I was like, hey, can we tap into this line of credit? It was 2010. So again, didn't know the market was bottoming out, but I was like, let's buy more. And we were able to acquire 12 rentals or 12 doors total in a much shorter time frame versus I probably would have maybe only had 3 deals. Well, because I stuck my neck out, took out a loan, and then just paid that back as fast as humanly possible, we're able to take 12 doors, convert them into 115 units of multifamily in another market. And in those 5 years, take that, and then that's what paid for our co-work space. So live below your means and in non-sexy manner. Don't be a pauper and be like, oh, I can't afford that Starbucks today. Starbucks. But do that and then take strategic shots and smart leverage. And I think that's how you have that exponential growth.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. I think it reminds me of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant.
Yeah.
It is just that old school thinking of being smart with your money and building. He basically talks about a house being a liability until it's making you money, then it's on the investment side. But until this, it's basically a liability. And reducing your liabilities. And like you said, you touched on that nest egg is so important, and just to be putting away money is important too. So that's awesome advice. But
yeah,
well, cool, man. I appreciate your expertise and I appreciate your time.
Absolutely, Matt. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always fun, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. We'll chat with you soon.
Okay, thanks.